Right, so for the foreseeable future, I guess, I'm going to plan on coming out with 2 videos a day. The first one being an update on this whole situation that's going on in the world, giving some thoughts, some updates, namely Canadian stuff, and then the second video just being something that something unrelated or at least slightly unrelated to this. But anyways, getting right into it here. First, I'll give an update, then we'll talk a little bit. Anyway, so up here I have the cases, the confirmed cases at least. Um, there's estimates that there is a decent percentage of people that walk around every day that don't know they have it, or at least maybe they have it, they have mild symptoms, but they're whatever reason, maybe they're just think it's a cold, or maybe they do have bad intentions and they're just too much of an a-hole to go in and get checked. But to be fair, there is people that have it. A reasonable person wouldn't suspect they have it because they have no symptoms, and they could be possibly be spreading it. So I will make that part clear. But anyway, in Canada, confirmed cases for March 20th, 846, 10 deaths. In Alberta, there's 195, 49 new, which I don't know if that's just over the last day or how much of a period that is. But like I said, I'm gonna be making videos on this pretty much every day going forward, just because, like I say, we're all cooped. Most of us, at least, are cooped up at home. Can't really go out that much. Partially because there isn't that many places to go out to, and partially because it's probably not a good idea. Only one death though, so that's good, and only 10 deaths in Canada total, so that's actually pretty good. Um, that would be to less than much less than 1% of people dying, but um, Canada at least got the as at least somewhat in front of this. They're not exactly Italy or Iran or one of these places that got way things got way too bad, way too fast. I know 400 people literally died. I think it was 2 days ago in just Italy. So yeah, it can get crazy. So don't take this stuff for granted. But anyway, here's the stuff within Alberta. I know most of my viewers are, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I assume a very large percentage of them are in Alberta. So anyway, Calgary definitely has it the worst, 126 people. Edmonton, 43, which that is where that person who died was from. Central, 4, South, 5, and North, 17, which that's kind of odd to me that the North zone has more than South and Central when both of those areas are closer to Calgary, which has more cases. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But nonetheless, that's what we have. And like I say, too, the actual amount of people that have it is going to be is going to be higher than this. So it's not going to be that much higher, but it will be higher because, like I say, there is people that have it, don't know they have it, or maybe they have moderate symptoms and they're just not going to get tested. So, oh, and here it says right here too. Alberta confirmed 49 new cases on March 20th. And another thing to point out too is that now that there's kind of a full blown, I don't know if hysteria is the right word for it, but let's call it that. I would assume more and more people that maybe have mild symptoms are going and getting tested. Partially because you're basically forced to, because I mean you're cooped up at home anyway. Like, if you were working before, or if it's the first day or two of this whole quarantine situation, you're kind of enjoying your days off. Now it's kind of getting boring because we're 5 days into it, or 6 days depending on, a lot of places were closed as early as last Saturday, and most other places have closed this week. But anyway, that's the update on the Alberta cases. The last things I wanted to bring up too is that the Trudeau government finally closed the Roxham Road, whatever the place where most illegal immigrants come into Canada through. So that's a good sign. But like I say, the problem, I have to acknowledge that because, like I always say, whenever Trudeau does something good, I have to acknowledge it because I don't want to be biased. I'm not biased. But the thing I have to point out here is it was much too little and much too late. Like, I seen a report today that there's an estimated, I believe this was by Ryerson University too, so it's not some all the lefties out there being like, oh, it's a far right conspiracy. No, there's estimates that there's a 250,000 illegal immigrants just in the GTA. That's just in the GTA. So imagine just how much strain that's putting, additional strain that's putting on the system. That other words or otherwise never would have had to have been put on the system. So that's something that I wanted to acknowledge. But like I say too, the problem with the Trudeau government is just constant contradictions, constant, double standard, all this kind of stuff. Like if you're gonna take some big moral, standard and moral stance, then like why would you change your mind on it? Like it makes no sense. Like I mean, at least they're right now, but I don't think it's because I think they're doing it because anyone with a brain knows that the border should have been closed. Um, so that's kind of why. Not that they're going to abandon their open borders, free stuff ideology. And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up too is that some of the take-home lessons that we can learn from this kind of stuff. Now, the amount of take-home lessons we're going to take from this as a society depends how bad it gets. If it goes full pandemic, millions of people die, maybe tens of thousands in Canada, we're going to learn the hard way a handful of lessons. Now let's go over them. First one, open borders is a crazy, crazy ideology. Like the protection of borders is very important. You look at the countries that have strong borders. Look, Russia closed their border with China like right when the outbreak happened. Russia has less cases than Canada. I mean, Russia only has I think one or two people that have died from it, and Russia's right next to the country that it started in. So you also look at some of the other countries in Europe that have strong border control, namely the Hungaries and the Polands of the world. They don't have massive outbreaks. Italy is one of the countries that embraces open borders. Guess what? They have an outbreak. So that's what we have to, one of the lessons that we have to take from this. Now, the caveat I'll throw it is if this doesn't get that bad and that it blows over and it's not really all that bad, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, everyone's back at work. There's still people getting it that have cases, but we're being careful. People are quarantined, all that kind of stuff. The economy gets back on track within a few months. We're not going to take very many lessons to this because the only way that most people learn lessons is through experience and through being forced to learn it the hard way. And not by the hard way, I mean a lot of people dying, by losing their life savings, by having family members die. Like that's how, I mean, as sad as this to say, I wish that wasn't the case. I wish we could just learn lessons, the simple way, but most people can't. Most people can't. So that's the first thing. The first big takeaway is we need border control. All right, we need border control. There's no debating that. Like the debate with this kind of stuff. I mean, I'll love to have the debate, but you're gonna get absolutely destroyed because, like I say, the countries that had strong borders don't have outbreaks. The countries that don't, like I say, Italy, perfect example, does. So, and not only that too, it's the other aspects of it too. Like when you have open borders, people are going to come for the free stuff. Because in Canada, for example, we give away free healthcare to literally anyone. You don't even have to be a citizen. And when you say, oh, we're going to have open borders, people that live in third world countries are going to come and they're going to exploit that. And if they were such valuable citizens to society, to a first world society, they would have had no trouble getting into a first world society without open borders. So the people that are coming just because of open borders are overwhelmingly, yeah, there's always exceptions to the rule. People always throw that caveat out there. You think all of them are like this? No. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, but the overwhelming majority are coming for the free stuff. They're net drains in society. There's literally been governmental, university studies done. Illegal immigrants in the States, at least Canada, the numbers would be almost exactly the same, are about twice as likely to use, government, free healthcare, welfare, all that kind of stuff. And like I say too, in the States, yes, there is free healthcare. The States is not this bastion of the free market too. It's something like I always mention I can't stand about Canadians is that they think that the States is a free market healthcare system. It's not even close. But anyway, that's the other that's the main lesson. Well, I would say that another one that's just as important, and I'll leave it there. Um, we can't keep spending more money than we have as a society. it's going to destroy society because the government doesn't have savings. Like 500,000 people this week applied for EI in Canada, and my guess is that by the time this is all said and done, we're going to be in the millions of people that applied for EI. And the government just doesn't have money laying around. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to either borrow it, which has its problems. You got to pay interest on that. Not to mention, the more money you borrow, the less likely people are going to want to sell to you, basically, because the other problem with right now is the world economy is slowing down, which means the countries that generally borrow other countries' money don't have as much money to borrow. So they're going to either charge more interest or say, no, we're not going to borrow you the money. And if they say, if we can borrow the money from another country, well, we got to pay more interest. If we don't borrow the money from another country, we got to print the money, which means inflation, which hurts the poor. So that's stuff that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like I say, which one do you want to pay? Interest, which is just a guaranteed tax hike down the future because the government has to pay for that one way or the other. And for all you people and the climate change people being like, oh, we gotta save future generations, but yet you support this kind of stuff. It's such contradictory BS. And I like to say too, the other thing that's really funny to point out too is all these crazed leftist ideologies, like the gender stuff, the make believe racism and sexism, and all this kind of stuff. It's funny they're not talking about it anymore. It's funny they're not talking about it anymore. It's almost like it's a non-issue. It's almost like it's a non-issue. But are we still talking about government debt and how bad it is? Are we still talking about how, maybe we need more free markets, we need less regulations? If the FDA wasn't so, regulatory in the States, one of the problems is that people could, I seen a story the other day that people could make masks super cheap. They could get it into the States, but guess what? They're not going to be able to import it because they don't have the proper patents. And like I say, I'm not no legal expert, but basically regulations have prevented the importation of that kind of stuff. So, like I said, people could die because of that. And I mean, if this goes on, people will die because of that. So that's the thing too, is that for all these issues that I still talk about, people are still talking about them. And that's what I talk about too. The last thing being, like I say, we need to learn government debt is killing us. If the government would have ran balanced budgets, and we would have had money we would have had money, we could have afforded to get through this. We could pay people EI from ourselves. Like the government could run modest deficits for the next year or two, pay for it no problem. Not There wouldn't be a lot of interest because we're a country that has balanced budgets normally, so we pay almost no interest on that, and we get through it no problem. But because governments run massive deficits, we're screwed basically in the long run. And that's something that we're going to have to learn the hard way at one point or another. Whether we learn it now or whether we learn it down the road, we'll see. But we're going to learn it at some point. Anyway, I wanted to make a video about that. And like I say too, just to sum it up, I'm going to be putting out another video later today on unrelated topic, most likely. But yeah, like I say, I'm going to be making videos. I'm going to be putting out a lot of videos just because most people are at home right now. They need stuff to do, so might as well watch videos. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you'd like to, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I do have my PayPal linked in the description. I do have an email address, free transfer. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, all I ask, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.